All right. Hello. This video is going to be a little bit different, I guess. I've kind of done it a little bit before with my like fast opinions type of video, which I'm planning on doing another one of soon. But I wanted to answer a question in completeness, or completely, I guess, that Maticon asked. Maticon, I think I'm saying that correctly, asked, which is, will you go over when to use the frames that you skipped for whatever reason? Parentheses. Like Valkyr and Necros, you completely skipped acquiring the full sets after beating their respective bosses. And Ember, I apparently forgot about her after beating Ruck. That stuff is in reference to the free-to-play through, where my progression had very specific purposes, and none of my progression was in that using frames that I consider to be useless or don't have a use that benefits me immediately or very, very quickly. So I've made some charts to kind of go over why I pick the frames that I do, or why I did pick the frames. But in order to spell out why I pick the frames and when I acquire them and why I acquire them, I have made all these charts. So the first thing on the left is kind of how the game progresses and like what you are doing as you get farther in the game and get more experienced and gain more mods and the ability to do more things. So the early game is the first few planets that you open up. Right after that is you have some planets completed, and you're kind of just acquiring your basic mods and getting like your vitality leveled up, and you've probably got a serration by this point. You're doing some like really early game things, and just like a lot of like the simple, just planet to planet fighting the bosses type stuff. And we'll talk about what's available then after we've gone through this whole list. Then you've got like the first 3 to 4 planets complete, which is when you should probably start looking at what you actually want to accomplish and the ways to do that. And then you get to the point where you need corrupted mods to potentially complete what you want to complete. And then after that, you have specific rare mod farming and trading, doing stuff like that, as in the free-to-play through. I traded for a lot of mods, Rage, Lifestrike, I think. I traded for a lot of different things, rare mods that I needed to get quickly. Quick Thinking, I believe, was one of them, and that's what I did there at that point. And then void farming and finishing the star chart. In the free-to-play through, I'm not void farming because I don't need primes. Like, I just don't need them. They're not necessary to complete the game. They're mostly flashy. I do know there are stats associated with primes that are minor increases. They are not required by any means or leaps and bounds. And then you have the Endless Void, which is where your list of usable Warframes drops super hard, and you just go a long time in the Void for heavy farming purposes. And then the last thing that I've put on this list is doing the raid. So Endless Void, because I don't need primes, becomes something that I don't really need to do. So obviously, in the free-to-play through, the end goal is to complete the raid, which is what I've been working towards. And I need a few more mods and things to complete that. But I wanted to answer this question now because it's important to why I am doing things. So this next list is whenever a frame becomes available to you, and they are in sections. And I will say which ones I have completed on the free-to-play through and why I got them after we go over them. So the first is the starters, Excal, Mag, and Volt. Obviously, free-to-play through, I chose Excalibur. It was not hard to choose. Or rather, you should choose Excalibur. I chose Volt. I chose Volt because it was prior to Excal's rework. Right now, I think Excal is, like, far and wide the best. Like, no problem. As a starter, he's just super solid now. Definitely better than Volt at this point. Volt and Mag are still fine. I don't think they're as good, and they don't allow you to do a specific loop that I will talk about whenever we get to the order of the frames that I would specifically choose right now. So then you have all of the planet frames, which includes Hydroid, which you have to get to Master Rank 5 to be able to get, and then we'll talk about later, you wouldn't actually get him anyway. You have your research frames, which are in your dojo, where you have Banshee, Volt, and Zephyr. Those would come much later for a lot of people. You can obviously get those much sooner if you just join a clan that is completed and then just farm it out. That's a totally possible thing. This is taking into account someone who doesn't have like a connection or something somehow. And then you have luck frames, which are frames that are essentially kind of based on RNG. And these are basically in order of least luck to most luck needed, which is Nyx. All you need is for Forward to invade a boss node. That happens pretty often. Farmed out, boom, you have Nyx. There it is. Oberon comes from XMI. Once you get later in the star chart, you'll find a lot of XMI. Doing any voids, Oberon is a fair bit guaranteed for you to get. Then you have Ash, who drops from Manix. Those are more rare, and it would take you much longer to farm than even, say, just a regular boss. And then you have Vauban, who is completely random based on alerts. If you are unlucky with your time online, you may never get Vauban, just because of like the randomness of the time of the alerts. So he is the most random. And then you have your quest frames, which a lot of people will not do. Just look at it and just go do it without knowing what the reward is, which is Mirage, Limbo, and Chroma. And Mirage is a frame that is like a good potential get, but we'll talk about that. And then you have what I have categorized as a long haul frame, which is just Mesa currently. And the reason it is a long haul frame is because you need to do a quest, and then there is a boss farm that is behind farming. And this used to be much worse because it was a luck plus quest frame, but that has actually been cut down completely by being able to go into ODD, I believe, and get the nodes needed to go and do Alad's runs. But this still makes her the hardest frame in the game to actually like do the farm for. It's definitely the longest, but Mesa is also very worth farming and very worth getting. So there's that. And that is kind of like the order in which you can get them. And the planet ones are kind of relative, like you can kind of branch out in any direction. And all of the ones that are on planets, I would consider very easy to acquire. You could just get just throw into like recruiting. Hey, can someone take me to Pluto so I can get an Excal? Boom, you're done. Someone will take you there, I'm sure. If you can handle the enemies there, you'll be fine. It'll be no big deal. So, the starting out progression that I have done on the free-to-play through very closely. My situation was different. The situation has changed. And then there are other options below that. So, starting out, I would suggest anyone starting the game, like, this is the most effective method. Obviously, if you play, you can play how you want to. Do not take this as like the only option. If you like Mag and you want to pick Mag as your starter, pick Mag. It will be more fun for you to be playing the thing that you want instead of the thing that is optimal. But this is literally just based on what is optimal for someone who is like going to be completely free to play, is not keeping all the frames that they get, is not like trying to collect every single thing in the whole game, like not doing any of that shit. They're just trying to get the stuff that is like just great, is like meta, is objectively awesome, like just the good stuff. So starting out, Excalibur. Now the reason that you would pick Excalibur is because in the beginning he is very he's pretty strong. Like you've got some strongness going on there. Excalibur, I would say, is like very good at getting you to Venus. You'll have no problems. Just blow on through, get to Venus, where you farm Rhino. Now the reason, and this is going to be a little controversial to experienced players who may have like kind of gone back on this, Rhino is a really, really, really solid Warframe, specifically because of where he is. He's on Venus, which is a planet that you just basically already have. Like you basically are well, not basically, you are just there, and you can just go to that boss and farm him. That boss is pretty simple. You can beat it with any of the starters, not even a big deal. And then you get to Mastery Rank 2, which lets people know that Mastery Rank matters, which is all good, and you get Rhino. Now the reason that Rhino is so good, it's not because he can go 100 hours in tier 4 survival or whatever bullshit. That is not the reason that Rhino is good. That is not what I'm saying. I'm being very clear about that. Rhino is a monster at killing bosses and just doing regular-ass star chart shit. Rhino is just... Rhino is like the standard... Like... how to put this? Rhino is basically Warframe's equivalent to, like, easy mode in Gears of War. Like, you just do it because it's like this plays itself. Like, Rhino's so good. Like, it's very simple. You put on the iron skin when you got the energy. You move forward through a hallway. You clear enemies effectively. You kill them good. You've got a lot of survivability, a high health pool. Rhino reacts probably the best out of any frame to basic modding. Like, you put a vitality in him. You put a redirection in him. Got a steel fiber, got some room. You don't really have a lot of mods otherwise. He reacts well to steel fiber. Shield regeneration, sure, whatever. I got this mod, I got that mod. Like, oh, I found a streamline. That's cool. Throw that in there. Those mods are all good for him. Like, just like, whatever. And they make him like better by like a leap and a bound. And like his powers are already good enough. Like, if you don't mod his powers at all, you can probably get through the star chart pretty fucking easily. And if you put any mods into them, like I did, with efficiency, you just have like a really efficient like way to tank star chart enemies. Like, it's very hard to kill you. So other things that I did in the free to play through, and for a good reason, I got Ember, Mag, and Saren. Now, the reason I got Ember, Mag, and Saren is not because they're like amazing. It's because they're really, really easy to level, and they're really, really easy to get. Like, you get Ember. One of the things that Ember is actually outstanding at is giving you 6,000 mastery. She's great at it, because like if you get just fleeting expertise, like if you've already gotten to the point where you have fleeting, grab an Ember, go cast Fireball on some enemies on Kappa for a while, and you're level 30, and then you can junk Ember. Great for mastery, which you're gonna need. Mag, cast Pull on dudes until the fucking cows come home, and then boom, you're level 30. Awesome. Done. Saren is a little bit different in that she is just like, she's just fine, and her powers don't really put in a lot of like what's easy to level. Is just you can just play as her because she's kind of hard to kill, and like you're just her for a while with some decent guns, and then boom, you got your mastery. And then also later on, if you are keeping the Warframes, if you're like farming out and trading for platinum, Saren becomes a good frame later to be a lot more specialized. And it's also worth noting that if a frame is in any of these lists, they will not appear in another. There are plenty of frames that I've used for mastery in the specialized list down below, like Oberon. But the reason that Oberon is not in my fast mastery list portion of this is because Oberon is luck. If you don't get Oberon, he's not fast mastery. If you're trying to farm Oberon for 100 hours, and like you can't count on Eximus like even dropping the Oberon parts. Like, on Ember, Mag, and Saren's bosses, you get there and you just kill them. Their bosses are super easy. Like, there's nothing standing in your way from just boom, boom, boom. I got those 3 frames. I got them leveled. All that mastery is mine. Get the fuck out of my inventory. Like, that's what they're super for. And, like, I'm not saying they don't have other uses or that they're not, like, fine, except for Ember is not fine. She needs a buff. We can talk about that at some other time. It's just that they are, like, the fastest way to get mastery, I would say, and I have all of them leveled. So that's what those are for. Okay, so now these other 2 sections are probably the most controversial thing about this, and it's kind of the way that I view the game as a whole. You have specialized frames, which is the nice word that I came up with for that list that I would use to say mastery fodder. They're specialized. We're just gonna say that, and then we have the invite me frames. So what I'm going to describe as an invite me frame is often a meta frame or is a frame that gets you into a party. So what I mean by that is if you want to get into the raid, there are about like these 7 frames, you're going to get into a raid. If you got the build for those frames, it's not hard to get into the frame, or not hard to get into the raid, no problem. Like, the hardest one on this like list of 7 to get into the raid is probably Frost. And Frost is still awesome, But the reason that Frost is on this list is because if you want to get into a defense and you're Frost, guess what? You're in the defense. It's not a problem. Like, a Trinity is welcome in any party that is going for a while. A Trinity is always welcome 100% of the time. Like, both of her builds are fucking outstanding, and it's super hard to go wrong. Balbon is a really solid raid frame. He's really solid in all things, generally. Like, defenses, survivals. Balbon's a really solid frame. Mirage on the raid, her blinding ability is the most valuable thing right now because it's, like, incredible crowd control. Loki is kind of like the master of a lot of things. If you take him into defenses, you take him into survivals, you take him into the raid. Invisibility is super good. Being able to disarm, like radial disarm, it's all amazing. That stuff's great. Mesa, if you want to get into like a like experience farm, like mastery farm, defenses are really like Mesa. And the thing to point out here about Mesa, though, is that her 4 is going to change, so her position on the Invite Me list may change, but it's probably not going to make her any worse on the whole. It's going to change her Invite Me status, which would put her into the Specialized section. So right now, Mesa is in super high demand, because running Draco kind of requires a Mesa for people who are lazy as fuck. And then Nova, who has, like, probably one of the... Like, yeah, I'd say it's bargaining for being the best crowd control in the whole game. And, like, that is, like, non-stop great. And then in the Specialized section, it's just a bunch of frames that you don't see very often. Now, the only one on this list that I would say is teetering on the edge of being an Invite Me frame is Necros. Because you do need him for a lot of parties, but... it just seems like I'm seeing less and less of Necros being a needed frame, and them just kind of, like, not really being there. So, like, teetering on the edge of being in the Invite Me is Necros, even though I don't think that frame is particularly, like, where it should be. It's really close to being in the Invite Me, so, like, that one's very close. And then the rest of the frames down there are not really being asked for in a party unless for very specific or niche reasons. So that is why they are down there. Now, to come back to the top, we have Excalibur and then Rhino. So the reason that Excalibur is not in, like, any other list is because he would normally be in Specialized, but the really interesting thing about, like, you go to Rhino, and then you farm the entire star chart, and you get all your corrupted mods super very easily, and you get all your rare mods, and you do all this shit with Rhino, because Rhino is just good at doing that. And then you go look at Excalibur, and you go, wow, if I put these mods in you, she would get fucking crazy. That's insane. Which is what, like, my build on the free-to-play is right now, is, like, my Excalibur on the free-to-play is one mod off of being the same build on my main account, and it's because I don't have Prime Continuity on my free-to-play account because it hasn't come around yet, and I don't really want to level it, but that's besides the point. So, like, the fact that you can keep Excalibur, get Rhino, get a ton of mods, and then go back to Excalibur and he's 100,000,000% better. Like, in the mid-game, I feel is where Excalibur struggles, and against bosses, a lot of his abilities don't really work. But, because you can get Rhino and do that, after you come back to where you're doing endless stuff, Excalibur is actually really, really good at doing endless stuff, provided you've built a good melee weapon, and provided you have the mods that he needs. So that is why, like, into Rhino, back to Excalibur is kind of how that rotation works, and it's kind of what would have normally happened had I started playing the free-to-play through after Excalibur had been buffed. That's pretty much the exact rotation of what would have went on. I feel like I've covered everything. Yeah, basically, the super basic breakdown of this is that when you start out, Excalibur is the best choice. I'm sure someone will want to argue with that with me. I think that that's pretty objective that he is the best choice, with Volt as a very close second. You should get Rhino in the beginning of the game if you want your life to be 1,000,000% easier. If you don't want your life to be 1,000,000% easier, then don't get Rhino. I guess. Yeah. And then Ember, Mag, Saren, super fast mastery, easy to build. No problem. You can just write that off. If you want those frames later, that's cool too. Whatever. And then if you actually want to get into a party or into the raid, Trinity, Vauban, Mirage, Loki, Mesa, Frost, and Nova. Those frames are always in demand. I see people needing them all the time. It's endless. And then with a close runner-up to that list being Necros. And then the rest of the frames are your personal preference, honestly. Like, there are great frames down there. There are frames down there that I think are really good. Like, I think Zephyr is a pretty fucking good frame, but she's not in demand right now. And, like, she's not, like people aren't being like, yo, we need, like, 2 Zephyrs for this raid. Yo, 2 Zephyrs for the raid? Anybody? 2 Zephyrs? No. Like, what's happening right now is, like, we need 3 more Lokis for this raid. We need 3 more Lokis, a Nova, and 2 Mirages. Can we get 3 Trinities in this raid? Like, those are exaggerated numbers and are not exact. You need 2 Trinities for the raid. But whatever. But yeah, like, that's kind of, like, the way it has worked. And, like, I hope this is specific enough. Like, for, like, why you get frames. Because I'm not saying, like, your favorite frame is shit, unless your favorite frame is Ember. I'm saying that, like, this is the progression you go through kind of for the meta right now. Yeah. Yeah. Because I'd say right now Excalibur is the best solo frame. Pretty easily. Pretty easily, I would say Excalibur is the best solo frame at this point. In terms of just being able to fucking do everything. Yeah. And do it fast. That's important. Do it super quick and good. So I hope that answers the question on when to get frames and why to get frames and kind of like how the line of progression works. And if I didn't answer anything, or if this video is like not specific enough for like what you need when, then let me know and I will try and revise and or shorten it, because I feel like I've been going a while. Yeah. So I will see you guys next time.